Okay, welcome back. So you should be done with question 1 and 2 from the previous notes. And this is going to go over questions 3, 4, and 5. And the goal of 3, 4, and 5 is to write a ratio as a fraction and then to simplify if it needs it. Okay, so writing a ratio as a fraction. Now, when we first started this unit, we went over several ways to write a ratio. And if you remember, you could write a ratio. Let me get my pen back here. Okay, a ratio can be written as a fraction, so you can say 3 over 4. You can write it with a colon, so you can say 3 colon 4. Okay, or you can write it out in words, and you can just say 3 to 4. Okay, so don't get confused, those are all the same thing. Okay, so let's start looking at this and start writing some of these as a fraction if they're not already in the form, and reduce that fraction or simplify it if needed. Okay, so let's look at our sample question number 1. Okay, on this one we're going to say 25 to 45. Okay, so in order to write that as a fraction, well, that's pretty easy. Also remember that the first number always goes on top. So in this case, as a fraction, that's going to look like 25, and then your second number is 45. Okay, so we wrote the ratio as a fraction, and now what we need to do is simplify it, because 25 over 45 is not simplified. So in my mind, I'm going to try to think, and I'll put it in red. What's the number that will go into 25 and 45? And off the top of my head, I'm going to say, well, 5. So I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 5. Okay, and that's going to give us a new fraction over here, and so 25 divided by 5 is 5. Okay, and 45 divided by 5 is 9. Now I do have to look at that 5 ninths and say, is that reduced? So is there a common number that goes into 5 and 9 other than 1? And in this case, no. So we have reduced it. This is simplified. Okay, so the answer to this original ratio as a fraction is 5 ninths. Okay, pretty simple. Alright, let's switch back to white. Let's go on to the second example, and we're going to have 3 examples total to show you 3 different kinds. So on the second one, let's say that it starts out with kind of written like this. So 35 girls, and then they have a colon. Remember, that's you can write it the ratio that way too. And then 15 boys. Okay, so that's our ratio, and we want to put that as a fraction. Now remember, it's girls to boys, so the first number is your girls, of course, so that needs to go on top. So we're going to put the 35 on top, and the 15, which is your boys, on bottom. And again, notice that I'm not putting my rates in there yet. I usually, like normal, I wait till the end. And then again, a common number that both of these will go into both of these anyway. And again, this is pretty easy. It's 5. And remember, if you choose a number and you go through this process and it turns out that it's not simplified all the way, that's okay. Just do the process one more time. Okay, so 35 divided by 5 is going to give you 7. And 15 divided by 5 is going to give you 3. So let's look at 7/3 and make sure that it is simplified all the way. So other than 1, is there a number that will go into 7 and 3? And in this case, 2 won't go into 7 evenly, and 3 won't go into 7. So yeah, it's simplified. So this is a simplified answer. Okay, and one of the things I forgot to do in the first one, I forgot to put my units back in, but this one didn't give units, so we didn't put any in, but this one did. So the top was girls, so that's actually 7 girls to 3 boys. Okay, so don't forget, if it gives you the units, to put those units back in at the end. Okay, so those 2 examples, and let's go ahead and move this up just a little bit so we have some room, and for those of you in the back can see it. Okay, so let's do one more example before we move on. And this one, let's write it as 16 dogs, and we'll write it out in words, to 12 cats. Okay, so that's our ratio. So we need to write that as a fraction, and so the first one is dogs, says dogs, 2 cats, so that's the 16 is going to go on top. Okay, and again, I'm not putting my units in just yet. And then the bottom number is going to be 12, that's our cats. Okay, switch to red to show you which one I'm going to divide by. Now, when I look at 12 and 16, I think of the biggest number, probably 4. So let's divide both of them by 4. Okay. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. And I can tell you right now, it's pretty obvious that 4/3 is the lowest that'll go. Okay, and we'll get the units back here this time. The 4 was talking about the dogs, and the 3 was the cats. Okay. So your simplified fraction with the units is 4 dogs over 3 cats. Okay, so let me move it back to the top, and remember the title of these notes is Writing a Ratio as a Fraction and then Simplifying it if needed. Okay, so there are going to be 3 homework questions for you on this one, so number 3, 4, and 5. And I'll give you between 5, 7, we'll see how many minutes it's going to take you guys. But remember, the overall goal is that by the end of the class that you guys are done and you're handing the homework in. Okay, so let's go ahead and sign off and give you 5, 7 minutes or so, and we'll meet back for the last section.